can hear the music? Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Charane Om Ajnana Timarandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Jaya Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Hari Haraye Namaha Krishna Yadavaya Namaha Gopala Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudana Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jai Vishnupad Paramahansa Paribrajacharya Astotra Satta Sri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Koho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Syamakunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Maharani Ki Jai Yamuna Devi Ki Jai Ganga Devi Ki Jai Shamaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the Bhagavad-gita disciples, students from Cologne. All glories to the devotees of Cologne. All glories to the devotees of Cologne. All glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga. And now we will hear from our Master of Ceremonies, Shrilesh.
All glories to Mantra Bhagavad-gita. Right. Thank you, Prabhu, for coming again this weekend, with this week to give us a class like the regular schedule. We carry on. At the end of the class, we have the question and answer sessions. Please prepare your questions this time. We'd like people who have not participated to ask the questions this week. And everybody's microphone, please.
Yes, and any messages, please use the chat, please. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we're in the middle of chapter 4, entitled Transcendental Knowledge. Today our first section is verses 16 through 23, which I entitle Understanding Karma. Kim karma kim akarmeti kavayopi yatra mohita tate karma prabhakshyami yajgyatva mokshase shubhat. Krishna says, even the intelligent are bewildered in determining what is action and what is non-action. Now I shall explain to you what action is, knowing which you shall be liberated from all misfortune. So technically there are three kinds of karma. Karma is defined as activities regulated by the Vedas. Then we have vikarma, activities which disobey or violate the codes of religion. And then we have akarma. Akarma means transcendental or spiritual activities. Many people are mistaken in thinking that this word akarma means no activities. Yes, you could translate akarma as no activities. But the real meaning of akarma means activity which has no material reaction. So when we use the word in Bhagavad-gita, akarma, we are referring to spiritual activities, which by now I hope you understand to be the 9 activities of devotional service. And you've heard me emphasize that out of those 9, the first 2, hearing and chanting, are the most important and fundamental. So right now, you are doing akarma because you're hearing transcendental or spiritual topics. Okay, so Krishna is going to settle up what is karma and what is akarma. Karma no hi apa bodhavyang cha vikarmanaha. Akarmanascha bodhavyam gahana karmano gati. The intricacies of action are very hard to understand. Therefore, one should know properly what action is, what forbidden action is, and what non-action is. So that I explained. Action, karma. Forbidden action, vikarma. And non-action, akarma. Text 18. Karmanya karma ya pashed, akarmani cha karma ya, sa buddhiman manushyeshu, sa yukta kritsna karma krit. One who sees non-action in action and action in non-action is intelligent among men and is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. So this verse seems to be a little contradictory and confusing. So the first one, non-action in action, that's transcendental or spiritual activities, bhakti yoga, hearing, chanting, remembering, praying, serving, the 9 different activities of devotional service. So it's an action, but because there's no material reaction, therefore Krishna says non-action. So it's an activity, but there's no material reaction, and therefore the phrase non-action in action. Then, opposed to that, the next thing he says, action in non-action. So the impersonalist or Mayavadi thinks the way to achieve liberation where there is no reactions is to perform no action. Therefore, a strict Mayavadi or impersonalist does no activities whatsoever other than meditation and studying the Vedanta Sutra. That we learn from the pages of Chaitanya Charitamrita. That there was a discussion between Prakashananda Saraswati and Lord Chaitanya, and you see behind me, in case you do not know what that picture is, that here is Ramananda Roy, okay, and then, got you. How's that? That better? You got that better? No echo there. All right. So this is Ramananda Roy, and what is he seeing? Here's Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya is manifesting as Radha Krishna. That is the meaning of this picture. Ramananda Roy is seeing Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya is manifesting as the combined form of Radha and Krishna. So I just thought I'd explain that. So when Lord Chaitanya and Prakashananda Saraswati met, Prakashananda Saraswati said a bona fide Mayavadi sannyasi does not do any activities other than meditation and study of Vedanta Sutra. And he eats very, very, very little. No Mahaprasad feast for a Mayavadi. Therefore, I would never be a Mayavadi. Because Lord Chaitanya's program is chanting, dancing, and feasting. Jai. That's the religion I joined. So that was their discussion, and Prakashananda said, I see you're supposed to be a Mayavadi sannyasi like us, but we see you chanting and dancing with the low-class people. This is not what you should be doing. Anyway, I'm just pointing that out. So the strict Mayavadi impersonalist does no action whatsoever. But Krishna says, no, even in that, there is going to be a reaction. It's not going to actually give you liberation. No. Real liberation is achieved by devotional service. We will learn that at the end of chapter 14. When Arjuna asks the question, my dear Krishna, how do I transcend the modes of nature? Because that's what it means to be liberated. You transcend the three modes: goodness, passion, ignorance. And Krishna's answer is Bhakti Yoga. What kind of Bhakti Yoga? 24/7, 52 weeks a year, 100 years. Your whole life, you're performing these 9 kinds of devotional service. And again, I will always emphasize, hearing and chanting are the 2 most. From those 2, the other 7 will manifest. So Lord Chaitanya's program emphasizes hearing and chanting. That's why we're doing this class. And we're going to do this class for the next 20 years, hopefully. So, hearing and chanting, and I will hammer that, because I've hammered that for the past 25 years in my preaching. Hearing and chanting. Okay, so one who sees non-action in action, devotional activities, produces no material reaction, and supposed in non-action, stopping all activities, that itself is an action, is intelligent among men, and is in the transcendental position, although engaged in all sorts of activities. See, the impersonalist Mayavadis accuse the devotees of doing karmakand. They see us doing all kinds of devotional activities, and therefore they accuse us of performing fruitive action. But Krishna is saying, no, that's not true. It's devotional activities, and therefore there is no reaction. Nice to see Priya Chainani and her son. Very nice. Haribol. Haribol. Nice to see you. Thank you. Let's continue. Yasya sarve samarambha kama sankalpa varjita jnanagni dagda karmanam tam ahu panditang Buddha. One is understood to be in full knowledge, whose every endeavor is devoid of desire for sense gratification. Such a person is said by sages to be a worker for whom the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of perfect knowledge. So, according to Bhagavad-gita, you have two choices: sense gratification or service to Krishna. Those are your two choices. We're going to act, which we learned in chapter 3, or hopefully you learned in chapter 3, that the living entity cannot stop doing anything for even a moment. The soul is always active. Then you're going to say, oh, Prabhuji, what about when I'm sleeping? The mind is still active when you're sleeping. So Krishna is saying the soul is always active, either in the conditioned state, what to speak of the liberated state. There's always action. Okay, so you have two choices: serving Krishna or serving Maya. Sense gratification means serving Maya. So here, full knowledge means I'm acting, but there's no sense gratification. Everything I'm doing for Krishna. Eat for Krishna, work for Krishna, sleep for Krishna, speak for Krishna, dance for Krishna, paint for Krishna. That is the life of a devotee. A devotee does everything for the satisfaction of Krishna. So therefore, even though so-called acting, as it says here, the reactions of work have been burned up by the fire of this perfect knowledge. This is perfect knowledge, to see non-action in action. This chapter is called transcendental knowledge. So if you understand this subject matter, that will then burn up all your reactions. Tyakva karma phalasangang nitya tripto nirashraya karmany abharvitipopi naiva kinchit karoti sa. Abandoning all attachment to the results of one's activities, ever satisfied and independent, one performs no fruitive action, although engaged in all kinds of undertakings. So here it is again. There's no fruitive reaction. Fruitive reaction means I'm doing something because I want to get some material result. All of you, you're going to the office, you're going to work. Why? Money, money, money. Sweeter than honey. Yes. You don't love your boss. And oh, boss, I'm going to work for you simply because I love you. You don't have to give me any salary. You're not going to do that. No. You're not dumb. An idiot would do that. No. No paycheck, no work. Goodbye. So fruitive, that's what fruitive means. I'm acting, but I want something from it. But here, the devotee is not doing anything for his or her own benefit. The devotee is doing everything for Krishna. Therefore, there is no fruitive reaction, even though engaged in all kinds of activities. The impersonalist Mayavadi does not understand this verse, because the impersonalist Mayavadi thinks, oh, as soon as there's some kind of activity, it has to be fruitive. But no, devotional life is action, but no fruitive reaction. Just like I'm speaking Bhagavad-gita. There's no material reaction. I'm doing this to please Krishna. You are hearing, first item of devotional service, you are hearing and you're doing it to please Krishna. And when Krishna becomes pleased, automatically you become pleased. Why? You pour water on the root of the tulsi plant, what happens? Tulsi grows. After the program, I will go to my downstairs. My wife will have prasad ready, and I will eat. I put food in the mouth. It goes to the stomach. All my limbs are satisfied. So the devotee knows this, that if I simply satisfy Krishna, automatically I will become happy. If you are, ladies, you put on kajal, maybe you look in the mirror. Because you put on kajal, the reflection shows, oh, how nice the kajal is, right? The reflection shows what you did. So we are reflections of Krishna. When we dress Krishna nicely, when we feed Krishna nicely, when we serve Krishna nicely, the reflection also benefits. So that is the essence of this bhakti. You do something for Krishna, and by doing that, automatically you become satisfied. Let's continue. Nirashiryata chittatma tyaktava sarva parigyaha shariram kevalam karma kurannapnopti kilbisham. Such a man with this understanding acts with mind and intelligence perfectly controlled, gives up all sense of proprietorship over one's possessions, and acts only for the bare necessities of life. Thus working, one is not affected by sinful actions. So this was Prabhupada's philosophy. Simple living, high thinking. That's where Prabhupada got this from. You can live comfortably, be happy in your material life, have children, live comfortably, that's okay. But at the same time, your main focus should be how to serve Krishna. Just like, I'll give you a practical example for your group here. So all of you, most of you, if not all of you, are helping out in the Food for Life program. You're not doing it for you. Why are you doing that? To benefit the people. So there's no fruitive thing for you, right? And not only are you giving food, you're giving prasad. So it is a completely transcendental program. That's why I applaud your Food for Life program. It is perfect because you're not just feeding people. If you were just feeding people, that would be a fruitive work. But because you're giving them prasad, that changes everything. So you keep doing that, and you will become more and more satisfied in yourself, simply by concentrating on giving people prasad. It's Lord Chaitanya's program. Distribute prasad. Let's continue. Yadrichcha labha santushto dvanvatito vimatsara samaksidda vasiddau cha kritvapi na nibajyate. One who is satisfied with gain which comes of its own accord, who is freed from duality and does not envy, who is steady in both success and failure, is never entangled, although performing actions. Okay, so the main thing here that I want to emphasize, does not envy. Envy is the original sin. Envy is why we're here in this material world. The second shloka of Srimad Bhagavatam points out who is able to understand Bhagavatam, one who is free from envy. And this will also be mentioned here in Bhagavad-gita. Krishna later on will say to Arjuna, Arjuna, because you are never envious of me, therefore I am imparting this knowledge. That's why Krishna spoke to Arjuna and not Duryodhana, because Duryodhana was envious of Krishna, envious of Krishna's devotees, the Pandavas. Therefore, Duryodhana was never going to be qualified to understand Bhagavad-gita. But Arjuna is not envy Krishna, therefore he can understand. Gata sangasya muktasya jnana vastita chetasa yagya acharata karma samagrang prabaliyate. The work of a man who is unattached to the modes of material nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges entirely into transcendence. So, when you have this understanding, then you are situated in transcendence. This Bhagavad-gita is transcendental knowledge, beginning from chapter 2 when Krishna began his instructions. All throughout the remaining 17 chapters, Krishna is explaining transcendental knowledge. And when you act on it, that's the whole point. We're not just reading it just to read it and say, oh, I read Bhagavad-gita. No. We're reading it so that we will apply it. We will live it. As we say where I come from, New York, walk the walk, talk the talk. That's what it means to be a real follower of Bhagavad-gita. You read it and then you implement it. Let's go to the next section, verses 24 through 31. Understanding sacrifice. So this is a good section. Brahmarpanang Brahma Havir Brahmagnau Brahmanahutam Brahmaivatena Gantavyang Brahma Karma Samadhina. A person fully absorbed in Krishna consciousness is sure to attain the spiritual kingdom because of one's full contribution to spiritual activities. See how Prabhupada points it out? Spiritual activities in which the consummation is absolute and that which is offered is of the same spiritual nature. Let's take a look at prasad. You're cooking it, you're taking the items, the bhog, the rice, the dal, chapatis, whatever right? You're taking these material ingredients, cooking it, thinking of Krishna while you cook, hopefully. Then you offer it. And when you say the prayers and you ring the bell, Krishna then comes and eats when he hears the prayers. Then it becomes no longer just rice dal, it becomes prasad. Because you offered it. And because you offered it with the secret ingredient, love, bhakti. We'll learn that in chapter 9. We will learn that. If you offer me a leaf, flower, fruit, or water in love, I eat. He uses the word ashnami. The word ashnami means I eat. Krishna will actually eat your offering if it's laden with love. Please, always remember that. Offer your bhog with love for Krishna. Then it becomes delicious prasad. So, once it's offered, now it's completely transcendental. It's not ordinary food. So it all becomes spiritually absolute. Daivam evapare yagyam yogina paryupasate brahmagnav apare yagyam yagyinavo pajuvati. So now Krishna is going to go through different levels of sacrifice. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them. And some of the yogis offer sacrifices in the fire of the supreme Brahman. Shrotradin indriyanyanye samyamagni shujuvati shabdadin vishayan anya indriyagni shujuvati. Some, such as the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the senses in the fire of mental control. And others, like the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Sarvan indriya karmani pranakarmani chapare atma sanyama yogagnau juvati jnana dipite. Others, who are interested in achieving self-realization through control of the mind and senses, offer the functions of all the senses and the life breath as oblations into the fire of the controlled mind. Just like Dhruva. Dhruva began his practice when Narada instructed him. So Dhruva was chanting the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which we chant before every class. That was the mantra Narada gave Dhruva. So for the first month, Dhruva was eating fruits that were found in the forest. Then the second month, he became more austere. And by the 6th month, Dhruva was simply keeping his life air controlled, taking a breath every so often. He had completely controlled all his senses, so much so that it was choking the demigods and the heavenly planets. Dhruva's austerity at the age of 5 was so intense that the demigods went to Lord Brahma and said, do something, do something. So they went to Vishnu. Vishnu said, yes, I will satisfy Dhruva. But that's an example of this. All of his sensory activities, he was taking a breath after a long, I can't even do it for a few seconds. Dhruva was doing it for a long period of time, controlling the breath. Dravya yagyastapo yagya yoga yagyastapare swadhyaya jnana yagyascha yataya sangshita vrata. Having accepted strict vows, some become enlightened by sacrificing their possessions, and others by performing severe austerities, and by practicing the yoga of eightfold mysticism, which we will learn in chapter 6, or by studying the Vedas in order to advance in transcendental knowledge. So that's what I do. That's my sacrifice. I spend hours every day studying Gita, Bhagavatam, teachings of Lord Chaitanya. That's my sacrifice. Today I spent many hours just studying. I have like 3 classes this weekend. So I had to prepare my classes. So that requires research and study. Apane juvati pranang prane panang tatapare pranapana gati yudva pranayama parayana apare niyatahara pranang praneshu juvati. Still others who are inclined to the process of breath restraint to remain in trance, practice by offering the movement of the outgoing breath into the incoming and the incoming breath into the outgoing, and thus at last remain in trance, stopping all breathing. That's what Dhruva did. If you read in the 4th canto of Bhagavad-gita, that's exactly what Dhruva did. Others, curtailing the eating process, offer the outgoing breath into itself as a sacrifice. Well, I could never do that. That's why Lord Chaitanya's program is chant, dance, take prasad. If Lord Chaitanya's process was curtailing the eating process, I could never do that kind of yoga. But I do Lord Chaitanya yoga. Chant, dance, take prasad. Sarve piyet yagya vido, yagya shapita kalmasha, yagya shistamrita bhujo, yanti brahma sanatanam. All these performers who know the meaning of sacrifice become cleansed of sinful reactions, and having tasted the nectar of the results of sacrifice, they advance towards the supreme eternal atmosphere. So the supreme eternal atmosphere is the kingdom of God. And the sacrifice recommended for this day and age, the age of Kali, as taught to us by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the recommended sacrifice, Yagyai Sankirtana Prayayar, directly stated, Yagyai, sacrifice, Yagyai Sankirtana Prayayar, chiefly Sankirtan, the complete glorification or congregational chanting of the glories of Krishna. Sankirtan, complete. That is the recommended process of sacrifice in this age of Kali. No other sacrifice is recommended other than this Sankirtan, hearing and chanting the glories of Krishna. Nayang lokasya yagyasya kutonya kuru sattama. O best of the Kuru dynasty, without sacrifice, one can never live happily on this planet or in this life. What then of the next? So we must do Sankirtan. Just simply to be happy in this world, you must do Sankirtan. So everyone should be reading Bhagavad-gita throughout the week. Everyone should be doing some japamala, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Since I began my preaching with the Indian communities in 1994, all my students and disciples, I told them, start with just one round. Just start with one. But the trick is you do it every day. And once you become accustomed, then you double it, 2. And when you're fixed on doing that every day, then you double it. Yes, Prabhupada Das, you know that I used to preach to you like that. I used to write him all the time. Then when you get accustomed to 2, see, I remember these things. Then double it to 4, and within time, you'll be up to 16. I have made many devotees with that preaching. And now they have gone on to do big service. Some of them are now pujaris in the LA temple, on the altar, dressing the deities. And I all started them, just do one round every day. Just do one. But what happens is, you get a taste. And then, with that taste, Prabhu, can I do 2? Yes. Okay, so the next verses, final instructions on sacrifice. And we're coming up to a big verse, so now pay attention. Evang bahu vidha yagya vittata brahmano mukhe karmajan viditan sarvan evang yatva vimokshase. All these different types of sacrifice are approved by the Vedas, and all of them are born of different types of work. Knowing them as such, you will become liberated. Yes, because the different sacrifices had different processes. Shreyan dravya mayad yagyaj jnana yagya parantapa sarvam karmakilang partha jnane parisamapyate. O chastiser of the enemy Arjuna, the sacrifice performed in knowledge is better than the mere sacrifice of material possessions. After all, O son of Pritha, all sacrifices of work culminate in transcendental knowledge, the title of this chapter. So the sacrifice performed in knowledge, this reminds me of what Krishna said to his father Nanda Maharaj the day of Govardhan Puja. Maharaj Nanda was about to perform a sacrifice for Indradeva. But Krishna came and said, no, we shouldn't do this. And then Krishna had some discussion with his father, and Krishna convinced his father, rather than worship Indra, they will worship Govardhan Hill, the cows and the Brahmins. Krishna was able to convince. Krishna was only 7 years old. See how powerful Krishna is. He convinced his father. And in his discussion, Krishna said, my dear father, those who know all the intricacies of the sacrifice, they get the full benefit. So I've always remembered that. So as I already mentioned, and will probably mention every class, the recommended sacrifice in Kali Yuga is Sankirtan, chanting, hearing, glorifying Krishna. So therefore, if you want to do that sacrifice properly, then you should try to learn as much about it as you can. And therefore, in Prabhupada's books, he's giving you so much information on how to do this sacrifice of chanting. If you would like to study it nicely, the final chapter of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, entitled the Shikshastakam prayers. Ooh, one of my favorite chapters. The whole chapter, Lord Chaitanya himself explains all the benefits from chanting the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We should try to learn as much as possible about this Sankirtan. Now comes one of the most important verses of the Gita. Perhaps you know it. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti chigyanam gyaninas tattva darshanaha. Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So, there are three kinds of spiritual master. First, Vartma Pradarshaka, one who points you in the direction. Again, I seem to be in Dhruva Bhav. Dhruva Maharaj was sitting on the lap of his father, the king, and his stepmother, who was the favorite, told Dhruva, you cannot sit on the lap of the king. So the 5-year-old boy ran crying to his own mother, and his mother acted as Vartma Pradarshaka Guru. She told him, my son, if you want to fulfill your desires, then you have to worship the Supreme Lord. So Dhruva did that. He left home, went to the forest. So his mother pointed him in the direction, Vartma Pradarshaka. Then the next guru, Shiksha Guru, one who gives instructions. For everyone who comes in contact with this Hare Krishna ISKCON movement, Srila Prabhupada automatically becomes your Shiksha Guru, because everything we do is based on his instructions and teachings. What I'm speaking to you is what I have learned from my Diksha Guru, Srila Prabhupada. And then the third Guru is the Diksha Guru, who actually formally initiates you into chanting. You take vows at the time of initiation that you will give up illicit sex, intoxication, meat eating, and gambling, and that you will chant minimum 16 rounds on mala every day, and at that time you are given a new name. Yes, meaning new birth, second birth, spiritual, born again. So many times my Christian friends, when I would be out distributing books, they would come up to me, "Are you born again?" And I say, "Oh yes, I am born again. See, here is my umbilical cord. I'm born again of the Spirit." I used to have so much fun with them because they would try to frighten me. But when you have transcendental knowledge, nothing can disturb you. Let's continue. Yajgyatva punar moham evam yasyasi pandava yena bhutanya sheshani drakshyasi yatmano yato mayi. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never again fall into such illusion. For by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are part of the Supreme, or in other words, they are mine. So this is what you're going to learn by accepting a spiritual master. First of all, you will no longer be in illusion. And then what will you see? Everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. Therefore, we're all brothers and sisters because we have a common father, Krishna. When you get initiated, the spiritual master acts as the father, and the Vedic literatures act as the mother. So the combination of the spiritual father and the spiritual master allows you to be born again. You already have your birth mother and father. That's your first birth. But second birth means you have accepted a spiritual master, and along with the teachings of the Vedas, you are given your second birth. So this is what you learn when you accept the spiritual master. The essence, all living entities are part and parcel of Krishna. We're all belonging to Krishna's family. Therefore, I don't hate you. I don't envy you. Why should I? We're all belonging to the same family. Okay. So, should I finish the chapter, Shrilesh? All right. So this last section is called Understanding Transcendental Knowledge. So this is, the whole chapter is leading up to this final section. All leading up to thee. Apichet asi papebhya sarvebhya papakritamaha sarvam jnanam plavenaiva vrijinang santarishyasi. Even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, when you are situated in the boat of transcendental knowledge, you will be able to cross over the ocean of miseries. So as soon as you begin to accept Prabhupada's teachings and live by it, you're on that transcendental boat. Soon as you don't get off the boat, as soon as you get off the boat, you're going to fall into the waves of Maya. Stay with Prabhupada's books, study, read them every day, and you're sailing over the ocean of material existence. Yes, there's going to be some disturbance caused by the waves, but if you stay on the boat, you're good to go. You get off the boat, Maya will drown you. Stay on the boat. Yatadangsi samidognir basmasat kuroterjuna gyanagni sarvakarmani Basmasat kurute tata. So here's a different analogy. First he gave the boat, now he gives the fire. As a blazing fire turns firewood to ashes, O Arjuna, so does the fire of knowledge burn to ashes all reactions to material activities. So at the end of the Gita, when Krishna says to Arjuna, so, have you heard everything? Do I need to repeat anything? I have explained everything. Now, Arjuna, what do you wish to do? And Arjuna will say at the end of Bhagavad-gita, my illusion is dispelled. I am now ready to act according to your instructions. So that knowledge that he got burned up all his illusion. So the same way, you take advantage of this transcendental knowledge, it will burn up all your past sinful reactions. Just see how much benefit there is in studying this Bhagavad-gita. Nahi jnanena sadrishang pavitram iha vidyate tatsvayam yoga samsiddha kalenatmani bindati. In this world, there is nothing so sublime and pure as transcendental knowledge. Just, wow, Krishna is really highlighting this. Such knowledge is the mature fruit of all mysticism. And one who has become accomplished in the practice of devotional service enjoys this knowledge within oneself in due course of time. Yes, the more you are situated in transcendental knowledge, you will feel very satisfied and happy in your heart. In Lord Chaitanya's first instruction, Shikshastakam, he says, Vidya vadhu jivanam. Transcendental knowledge, right? That is how you will understand. This chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra is the life and soul of all transcendental knowledge. So even if you're illiterate, if you simply take to chanting this Maha Mantra, you will understand everything. But this transcendental knowledge will make you feel very satisfied in your heart. Shraddhava labate jnanam tat parasanyatendriya jnanam lagdva parang shantim achirain adi gacchati. A faithful man who is dedicated to transcendental knowledge and who subdues the senses is eligible to achieve such knowledge, and having achieved it, quickly attains the supreme spiritual peace. Yes, everybody wants shanti, 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 but you can get it. You don't need anybody. You just need to be a faithful person absorbed in transcendental knowledge. Let me tell you what I do when I become bewildered or I become confused. I sit down and I spend quality time hearing and chanting. And within a short period of time, I'm peaceful. Just by engaging in hearing and chanting, it works every time. Agyascha Sangshayatma vinashyati Nayang lokosti daparo Nasukam Sangshayatmanaha. But ignorant and faithful persons who doubt the revealed scriptures do not attain God consciousness. They fall down. For the doubting soul there is happiness neither in this world nor in the next. So your doubts should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. You have a doubt, you have recourse. If you have a doubt, go straight to Bhagavad-gita and find your answer. If not, approach your Shiksha Guru. As I've said, I don't know if I've said it, I am also acting as your Shiksha Guru here for this class. If you have a doubt, you have a question, write to me. I will put here my email address. There it is. You have a doubt, you have a problem, I will answer it, will try to answer it. I also spent a good amount of time today answering people's doubts. I also do that every day. So you have me to remove your doubts. You have Shastra, Prabhupada's books. You can always get your answers. Yoga sanyasya karmanang jnana sanchinna sanshayam atmavantang na karmani nibadnanti dhananjaya. One who acts in devotional service, renouncing the fruits of one's actions, and whose doubts have been destroyed by transcendental knowledge, is situated factually in the self. Thus, one is not bound by the reactions of work, O conqueror of riches. And then we have the final verse. The word tasmat. Tasmat means therefore. So Krishna has said many things in this chapter. Now he comes to conclusion. Therefore, tasmat agyana sambhutang hritstam jnanasinatmana chitvainang sanshayam yogam atishto tishta bharata. Therefore, the doubts which have arisen in your heart out of ignorance. That's the only reason why we have doubts, because we're lacking in knowledge. Should be slashed by the weapon of knowledge. So this Bhagavad-gita is a weapon. It's supposed to slash your ignorance and doubts. Armed with yoga, O Bharata, stand and fight. Because Krishna's whole purpose of preaching Bhagavad-gita is to get Arjuna to go and win the battle of Kurukshetra. So this message is going to be repeated throughout. So here he stands one now. You have now transcendental knowledge. It's a weapon. Now stand and fight. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we'll end today's class with prayers to Lord Nisringa. And then we'll have questions. These prayers to Lord Nisringa are very, very powerful. If you feel danger, if you feel fear, chant these prayers to Lord Nisringa and be protected. I call these prayers transcendental insurance policy. Namaste Narasimhaya Prahlada Klada Dayane Hiranya Kashipurvaksha Shila Tankada Kalaye Ito Nrsinga Padato Nrsinga Yato Yato Yamitato Nrsinga Bahi Nrsinga Ridaye Nrsinga Nrsingham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Nrsingham Adim Sharanam Prapadye Tavakara Kamala Vare Nakam Adbhuta Sringam Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringam Keshavadrita Narahadi Rupa Jaya Jagadisha Hare Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadish, Jaya Jagadish, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare, Jaya Jagadisha Hare. Oh, I forgot to mention. So this is the month called Purushottam Adhik Mas. And I did a class yesterday at someone's home. And during this month of Purushottam, any kind of devotional activities you do are going to be greatly enhanced. I was reading yesterday that we always have this month of Kartik. And this month of Kartik is very, very powerful for Vaishnavas. But Krishna was telling Lord Vishnu in this episode from the Padma Purana that this Purushottam Adhik Mas is even more powerful than any other month, any other season. So you want to maximize your devotional activities during this month. So we're going to have another program next Wednesday, which will also be in this month. Unlimited benefit is coming your way. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.